human body is comfortable between about 18 and 28 degrees. So imagine your house as being a box that you can keep between 18 and 28 degrees so you can be comfortable in there using the minimum amount of energy. So to keep that energy use down, we have 4 tools that we can use. First is orientation, which is how your house sits in relation to the sun and how the sun moves in relation to the house. Then there's insulation, which is like a blanket of some description that stops heat and cold mixing together. And then there's ventilation, which is particularly on the south coast, using the sea breeze to cool things down in the evening when things are too hot. And lastly, thermal mass. And thermal mass is a bank, if you like. It contains hotness or coldness. So using those 4 tools, we can look at a model of a small house that will give you some of the ideas about how we can keep your house cool in summer. And then later we can show some practical examples around our house about how those have actually been used in practice.
Hi everyone. Hey Tim, what's going on here?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's an amazing example of a solar passive design house. You might not build this house, but if I talk about it, it'll give you some understanding of the principles that underlie how to keep your house warm and cool at the right time.
And that's actually going to help with little behavioural things as well.
Absolutely. I'll do the dead things, you do the live things.
Okay, here we go.
So, can we have the lights off? Imagine that it's summer. The sun comes up in summer way over here.
Here comes the sun. Doo-doo-doo-doo.
And what happens is it hits on this side, and so you'll see there's only a little tiny window there because we don't want a big window, otherwise it'll let heaps of sun in. And you can also see that there's tinting on that window to help keep the sun out, okay? So then during summer, the sun goes at a high angle.
Ah, what angle is it?
82.
82 degrees, that's quite high.
And as you can see, all day while the sun's overhead, the sun is going on this wall and it's also going inside into the floor. And so the floor will be heating up and we have long hours of sunlight. So even though it's only coming in a little bit, you can see that it's going to be heating up all day. And then in the afternoon when the sun goes down over here, it's going to hit this wall and that wall's going to heat up, so there's only a little window there and then the sun will go down.
Hey Tim,
yeah.
I'm just thinking about it. It's not just the house that heats up, is it? It's actually all the way around the house.
Absolutely.
Like your brick paving or your pathways. Everything's going to
get really hot.
Really hot. Okay. What can we do about that?
Well, here's one thing we could do. We could have a big overhanging eave, and then when the sun's going overhead, it wouldn't heat anything up.
Oh look, not even the concrete out the front of the house.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Okay, the only trouble with that is, what would happen in winter?
Oh, the sun is at a different angle.
The sun is at a different angle in winter.
So I also find it comes up at a different place.
So in winter, the sun comes up more to the south. And so it hardly hits on that eastern wall at all, which means there's no real advantage in having a big window there. But the sun in winter sits at about 35 degrees, and what that means is if we've got that big eave hanging over, the sun isn't going to be able to get in and heat up the house. Just take that roof away for a tick.
This is what you have to do. You just have to move your roof line back and forth, summer and winter.
So when the sun's at 35 degrees, in the middle of the day, it not only heats up the floor, but it might even go right through and heat up the wall on the other side. So it's going to heat the whole house. And that's why we've got these big windows on the north. And then in the afternoon, the sun goes down and disappears over here fairly quickly. And again, it doesn't really hit the west wall, so there's not much advantage in having a big window on the west. So what can you do? You can either have a big eave, that's great in winter, or a little one that's great in summer.
Surely there's a compromise.
That's a good point. So you could have a halfway overhanging eave.
How long should it be?
It should be 40% of the height of the glass.
So 40% of this.
Yep.
Cool.
Or we could do a really good trick.
We
you
could
ready?
do a good trick. Okay, here we go. This is a magic thing called a solar pergola. Tell us what it is, Tim.
Well, what it is a bunch of slats set at 35 degrees, which remember is the angle of the sun in winter. So when we have the sun at 35 degrees, the sun goes straight through the slats and heats up the inside of the house.
That's amazing.
Look at that. Okay, and then in summer, when the sun's at 82 degrees, it makes no sun at all. So not only does it stop the sun coming on the house and the roof and the wall, but also it stops the ground heating up at the front.
Can you show us that again?
Sure. So here we go.
That's winter.
That's winter. And that's summer.
I think that's amazing.
It is. Not only that, but how's this? Spring, halfway. Autumn, halfway.
Man, solar pergolas, they're the way to go.
But what happens if you don't want to have to build all that infrastructure? What could you use instead?
I don't know. I think we might have something out here.
Ta-da! You can use a deciduous vine.
This one happens to be grapes because you get two things. Shade, sun in winter, shade in summer, and grapes to eat.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Not only that, but the green shade, because it's transpiring, it's like nature's little air conditioner. So it brings the coolness of the greenery into your house as well. So we talked about how it's important to have vertical shading on the east and west, and here where we've got the facing west, the afternoon sun comes in low underneath the veranda and can really heat up the veranda and the house. So what we've got here is some shade cloth which rolls down vertically, and that can stop the afternoon sun coming in, and it'll keep everything nice and cool. And it still allows, because we've used 50% shade cloth, it still allows the breeze to come through and do some of the cooling effect that it does. The other thing that you can do is use something like an espaliered grapevine, which will do the same thing. Essentially what it's doing is growing up, creating a vertical screen that gives you shade. And as I mentioned before, if you're using some kind of plant like a grapevine or a Virginia creeper, then you actually get the benefit of having the moisture and the cooling effect of the greenery as well. So if you've got a brick house, the walls that are facing east and west, they can absorb a lot of heat in the morning and afternoon sun. One of the things that you can do is insulate that brick against that incoming heat. So you can do that either by just growing a passion fruit vine up the outside, or if you want to go the whole hog, you can add some wooden battens and then put air cell in and then put tin over the top of that, and that gives you multiple layers of insulation, so when the sun's coming in it doesn't penetrate through and heat up the brick. So here's a useful tip for treating your windows for temperature. In the summer you can put this air cell on the outside of your window, and usually it's pretty stiff, and you can just actually cut it the right size, poke it in, and it'll stay there. And then what that'll do is when the sun's coming in to try and get into this window, it'll reflect all the light away and you won't get the heat inside. And then if you take it out, you can do the same thing on the inside in winter, so that you put it up in the afternoon when the sun's already been in there, and then it'll trap the heat inside, a little bit like the curtains. It's just another way of insulating your windows, but it's a really cheap and simple way, and if you're renting then you can take it with you when you move.
Okay, so we actually can use windows a couple of ways, and one of the ways we can use them is actually allow ventilation through our house. So here at Ecoburbia, during the hot summers, the ventilation we want is coming from the ocean, from the southwest. So a great idea is to just check the temperature outside and the temperature inside, and that will give you an idea as to whether you should open or not. So I'll just check what the temperature is in. Hey Tim, what's the temperature inside?
Oh, it's 26, pretty hot.
It's getting hot in there?
It is getting
hot. Okay, it's only 20 out here, so I might open up our windows. And you'll notice our windows are sliding. And casement windows or sliding windows are really handy because what happens is the southwest breezes come, they hit here and they actually get funneled right through the house. So there's Tim.
Walking against wind.
Walking against the wind.
Yeah, it's
so
like someone just turned a fan on.
Comes through the house, goes through those big northern doors. So we want a small opening on our south and leading to a bigger opening on our north, and that's going to funnel that air through. And the northern windows are going to be big because hot air rises, so we want them to get in and out of the house. Cools down really well. So here we are with our little lathe thermometers, which by the way are really handy to have in your house because you can kind of tell where hotness and coolness is coming in, figure out where you need to insulate, might be the best place to put your living room, all sorts of things. But we're going to use them today for a little experiment we've done. We have 3 bits of tin, a black one, a tin coloured one, and a white one. And these are representing the different colours of houses that you might see around in Western Australia. So we've left them out in the sun for a little bit today. We're just going to see what temperatures they are. Tim, it's your job.
18. 22.
22.
22.
Oh, here we go with the black.
Oh, 31.
31.
Ooh.
So if you do happen to have a black roof on your house, there is something you can do.
There's a bunch of different products that you can use to paint your roof with that'll increase the reflectiveness and change it from a dark roof to a light roof, and often those will make your roof last longer as well. So if you have got a dark coloured roof, don't despair.
So it gets pretty hot here in WA, so we hope you've enjoyed the few things we've been able to explore today around keeping that hot sun out of our houses in summer.
Hey Pods, don't forget, insulation, ventilation, orientation and thermal mass.
Lots of key things we learned. We talked about shading, we talked about letting those cooling breezes through our house, but the main thing is we want that sun out of where we're living.